A sick lie about Jewish people has been circulating in South African society, and it must be addressed. So in a couple of recent videos, I've noticed how the comments section has been swirling with a bunch of peculiar remarks, and a lot of them seem to be directed at my heritage. So this never used to happen to me in the past, and I know that the vast majority of you who do watch this channel are very well-informed people who don't behave like this. But some pretty peculiar statements and accusations have been made. There have been a few people who have claimed that somehow I am a fake Jew, and that I and Israelis have created this fictitious state, and that I am some settler, and even though I am obviously South African, given my accent, and that somehow I am Polish. Yeah, I know I'm pretty much as confused as you are. I don't know why they specifically pick Poland out of all countries, but ultimately, as many of you will know, I am Jewish. I'm actually of a Middle Eastern ancestry, not a European one, and yet these kinds of comments persist. And unfortunately, I've noticed that they stem from a pretty ugly lie that's been spread in South African society. And so what I want to do here today is I want to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to show you evidence from my own DNA tests, as well as some photographs that dispel these ridiculous rumors and actually show you the truth about not only the Jewish people, but who is actually native to the Middle East, and specifically the Levant. But before I get into it, could I please remind you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already? It's entirely free, and all you have to do is click on the subscribe button below the video. Now let's get started. All right, so this is the first DNA test I want to show you. Now, just to make life a little bit simpler, most of you already know that I'm Jewish, Middle Eastern origin, but the reality is that my ancestry is about half Ashkenazi and half Mizrahi. For those who might not know, Mizrahi Jews are those who remained in the Middle East and North Africa and pretty much never ever left the region throughout history, whereas Ashkenazi Jews are those who ended up in Europe after the Roman Empire kicked them out of the land of Israel during that expulsion. So ultimately, as you can see here, regardless of being a mix, I come out heavily Middle Eastern. You can see that my highest percentage by far is Levantine, which, as you can see, is exactly that area where Israel and the surrounding countries are. Got a bit of broadly Asian there. I've got some European, although it's a minority. And as you can see here, it's got Italian and Balkan, which is basically Greek. No Polish. No Eastern European. Doesn't even come up. And yet somehow those are the accusations being leveled against me. So, yeah, sorry to disappoint you guys, but no Eastern European here, even with an Ashkenazi background. We then take a look at Africa, and we see that there's 3.53% North African, and this is completely normal because a lot of the time, North Africans, such as Egyptians and Moroccans and others, did coexist and travel with other Middle Easterners. So it does actually make a lot of sense. And yeah, just to kind of like lay out the truth here, nobody is ever going to be 100% anything when they take a DNA test, because humans are migratory by nature and we move around, and so we do intermingle. Here's another interesting one that I took. It's genetic ancestry through sequencing.com. For any of you who are interested in doing a DNA test, sequencing.com is excellent because you do get the commercial tests like MyHeritage and 23andMe, but sequencing.com basically explores the human genome. I think they say about 1,000 times deeper than those tests. So you're able to get a lot more historical results. So if I just scroll down to my results here, okay, here we see it. 19% Ashkenazi Jewish. So unlike that one, this one does account for Ashkenazi. It's not 50% like I thought it would be, but hey, I guess they kind of count a lot more of the Middle Eastern DNA, and they get a bit confused. As you can see in this one, it picked up 1% Russian, but pretty much no Eastern European other than that. Again, we've got a little bit of that Balkan or Greek. And then, hey, the vast majority of my DNA, West Asian, which is Middle East. You got Turkish, you got Iranian, you got Iraqi, but the biggest is Levantine, which again follows the previous result that I showed you. I clearly happen to have the strongest Levantine genes. Now, if you still aren't convinced, here's a third test. And don't worry, it's the final one that I'm going to show you before some really important photos. So if we scroll down, you see how Ashkenazi Jews have been clumped in with Europe here, but doesn't really matter. You can see that them together with the Middle East again makes up that sort of over 70%, which is what I seem to always get. You can see that I'm about 70% Middle Eastern, maybe 25% European, and then a little bit of North African and other places here and there. So if we go a little bit deeper into the results themselves, we can see how you got a lot of, funnily enough, it says Armenia, but again with the Lebanon, again with the Turkey, Jordan, which is again the same sort of area. The European is obviously, it says Ashkenazi Jewish as the highest, with a little bit of Italian, a bit of Greek as well. So as you can see, there's a pretty common trend here. Majority Middle Eastern with mostly Levantine, and then of course a little bit of the Turkish and Iranian, and then a little bit of Italian in there as well. And then depending on how they decided to measure the Jewish ancestry, which FYI, Jewish ancestry is quite difficult to track, then that's kind of generally how my result is split. So after going through all of that and seeing that I am mostly Middle Eastern and mostly of a Levantine origin, you might be asking, well, why is it that you look the way that you look? And the reality is that most of the people there actually kind of look like me. You see, in South Africa, we are told this blatant lie that somehow the minute that you've got a lighter skin tone or you look a little different, you're some kind of a European settler. Whereas we somehow taught that Muslims and Arabs are one and the same, and they just are not. You see, the majority of South African Muslims, and I don't say this to hurt anybody's feelings, it's just a fact, they are not Middle Eastern. They have no connection to the Middle East. The majority are either Indian, Pakistani, or Cape Malay. It's not to say that you don't get Middle Easterners in South Africa. You do. I'm one example. But the reality is that the vast majority of Muslims here are not actually Middle Eastern. And so when people think that the Muslims here who are darker skinned look like Middle Easterners, it's simply not true. Now, look, I don't blame people for not knowing exactly how Middle Easterners look because there aren't a lot of us in South Africa. I would assume that less than 1% of South Africa has Middle Eastern origin. And so I don't blame anybody for a moment, even the most educated people, for not knowing this. And so I thought it might be interesting for you to take a look at some photos and see, well, what do these Middle Easterners and specifically Levantine people from that Israel area actually look like? So just before we do that, I wanted to show you this photo from an Iranian community protest in South Africa, which is actually against the Iranian regime. These are people who want the Islamic regime to fall. And as you can see, okay, you've of course got some black people there. They're in solidarity. So, yeah, I'm not saying that they're Iranian looking by any means, but you can see other people on the left. They're the Iranians. And as you can see, they don't exactly look like South African Muslims typically look like. They're not as dark-skinned. Many of them will have my kind of a skin tone because in the Middle East, it is actually a very diverse kind of a place, and many people do have a lighter skin tone. It just is the way that it is. I also want to show you this lady. She's an incredibly brave Iranian woman. She came from Iran to South Africa. Here we have her when she was having an interview with the Truth Report. So shout out to Truth Report. Be sure to check out that interview if you haven't. And she also went viral on SABC. Now, this lady is 100% from Iran. She was born there, got a fairer complexion. Not everybody is super dark from those areas. It's just the way that it is. Here is another interview also by Truth Report. Be sure to check this one out. And it's with an Iranian South African man. Same thing here. Doesn't look particularly super brown. Now what I want to show you is the cast of one of the most popular TV shows in Lebanon. Ala al-Khilwa wa al-Mura. Very long name, I know, but let's take a look at who's in the show. So anyway, here you've got one of the cast members. As you can see, he would probably pass as white in South Africa, got light brown hair. There he is with another lady. She's also quite light. Yeah, there they are again. There's the rest of the cast. And what do you see? Well, South Africa, these Lebanese people would be white passing. And that shouldn't surprise you because there is a Lebanese community in South Africa, majority of whom are Christian, by the way, and this is generally how they look. They don't look like the local South African Muslims because, again, these are Levantine, Arab, Middle Eastern people. Those are not. I then wanted to show you the cast from a certain show. It's actually a very popular Netflix show from Turkey called Wolf. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend it. I've watched it. It's a mini-series. Really excellent production. But anyway, here you've got the cast, and big surprise here. They all kind of look white. Yeah, you got some darker guys. He's a bit darker. He's a bit darker. But look, most of the people are probably going to pass the pencil test during apartheid times. Just is the way that it is. Okay, so let's go in and, this guy's got blue eyes. Didn't expect that. Here he is again. They really seem to like this actor. This lady's got light brown hair, fairer skin. There she is again. Again, another actress they really seem to like. Here that guy is again. Here's another guy, also fairer features, blue eyes. This guy, I would say, is probably the most typical Turkish-looking guy over here, but again, probably passes white in South Africa. He's got my kind of a complexion, my kind of skin tone. I've been to Turkey and I've passed through Turkey quite a few times, so I know the place quite well. I've seen the people there. And yeah, as you can see, you kind of get a general idea of how the people look. Now, here's a really interesting one. This is an Israeli show called Fauda, and this is about a bunch of Israeli undercover agents who are Jewish, who basically pose as Palestinians due to being undercover operatives. And it's actually available on Netflix as well. It's highly successful. It's often been on the top charts. Another really great show. Be sure to check it out if you have Netflix. So yeah, if you want to take a look, all right, so here's some members of the cast. As you can see, this guy, pretty white looking. He's a little bit darker. This is the main actor, Leo Raz. He has my kind of skin tone. Fun story, I've actually run into him in real life. But yeah, doesn't matter that he's got a bit more of my complexion. When you walk around in Arab areas, they generally don't pick him out as being some kind of a European settler. In fact, they speak to him in Arabic. And here's a funny story. When I was in Israel, I went to Haifa, which is in the north. It's a very big city and it's a multicultural city. And it just so happened that I and an Israeli friend of mine were in an Arab neighborhood. And what actually happened was that my Israeli friend, so he's of a Moroccan Jewish background. Like if you saw him in South Africa, you'd probably think he's Indian because he has that kind of a skin tone. So anyway, we are walking into a store and the Arab shop owner speaks to me in Arabic and him in Hebrew. And when my friend asked him, he was like, wait, why are you speaking to him in Arabic? And the shopkeeper actually said, well, because I assumed that he's from around here. Your skin tone's a little bit dark, so you actually I just thought were Jewish. How do you like that? I was the one who they believed was Arab, because again, it's northern Israel, which is close to Lebanon and Syria. And they assumed that he was Jewish because he was too dark. Fancy that. Anyway, moving on, as we can see, they really like this specific guy. Oh, this is another actor. He's actually an Arab Israeli. And I've actually seen him in real life too. He was in Tel Aviv at the same time as me. Yeah, he's got a super white skin tone in reality, like if you see him in real life. So yeah, it just continues to prove my point. But yeah, the bottom line of this chat that we're having here is that unfortunately there's been this absolutely ridiculous narrative that's gone around that for whatever reason, if you're Muslim in South Africa, you are Arab, and if you're Jewish, you're some European settler. But here you've got the facts. This is what people generally look like in the region. They certainly do not look like Muslim people in South Africa. And a lot of Jewish people like myself, if we're from the region, we have heavy Levantine ancestry, and even fully Ashkenazi Jews also have Middle Eastern ancestry. So let's just cut out these absolute lies. Also, here's another thing. Doesn't matter where you're originally from. We're all kind of immigrants and settlers in our own rights, especially in a country like South Africa. So how about, instead of obsessing over people's origins and where they come from, we just get on with the business, make sure to improve service delivery, stick up for our communities, and just make it a better place for everybody that lives here? My goodness. Can we not get over our old racial lens of viewing the world and rather view it in a lens of productivity and making things better? I know that I certainly would like to, and I hope that you'll join me in doing the same. Thank you very much for tuning into this video. If you found it informative, please remember to subscribe to the channel for more content. Until next time, I'm Matthew Cohen, and this is the Power Pod.